couple times today. So good afternoon all. It's 4 o'clock on Wednesday, June 18th. This is the Palm Springs Airport Commission meeting. I want to call to order this meeting. Is the agenda posted?
Yes, the agenda has been posted.
Okay, good. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Commissioner, want to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. I have to take a roll call, please.
Roll call: Banks,
Here.
Berryman,
Here.
Burke,
Here.
Caldwell,
Here.
Corcoran,
Here.
Delgado, Ebensteiner, Beltman. Double check he didn't join in right now. Not been promoted. Okay. No, he's not on Zoom. And Fong,
Present.
Hedrick,
Here.
Heel,
Here.
Martin,
Here.
McDermott,
Here.
Park,
Here.
Sam Lanska,
Here.
Boss,
Present.
Wise,
Here.
Wiseman. We have a quorum.
Sounds good.
We have someone on iPhone raising their hand. Can you check and see if that's?
Hello, you're muted.
Yeah, this is David. I'm on the Zoom. You said I wasn't here, but here I am.
Oh, okay. It comes up as iPhone. So let me
Sorry.
promote you to panelist.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Fong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, we're coming to you from City Hall while our conference room is being renovated across the street. When those of us commissioners want to speak, just if you would turn your microphone on. We're trying to minimize the number of mics open so those of you watching on Zoom won't hear all of the papers ruffling and everything else. Okay. Do we have any changes need to be made to the agenda? With that, can I have a motion to accept, please?
So moved.
Seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call: Banks,
Yes.
Berryman,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Beltman. I think you're Fong,
Aye.
Hedrick,
Yes.
Heel,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Sam Lanska,
Yes.
Boss,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
and we're good to go.
Here we go. All right, the agenda is accepted. Tanya, do we have any public comments tonight?
We do not have any scheduled public speakers. Is anybody on Zoom wish to make a public comment? Please raise your virtual hand. Anyone in the room wish to make a comment? No public comment.
I got one hand.
Oh, we do.
Oh.
Not on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No public comment.
We need to approve the minutes from our March 19th meeting. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call. We have Banks,
Yes.
Berryman,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Beltman,
Yes.
Fong,
Aye.
Hedrick,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Sam Lanska, and Boss,
Yes.
Wise.
Yes.
Good to go.
Right. Also, we have to approve our minutes from the April 23rd meeting.
So the April 23rd meeting was, minutes were pulled from the agenda as staff needed additional time to complete those.
Okay.
These will be provided in the July 16th Airport Commission meeting.
That's good. All right. I want to take this opportunity to make some announcements in terms of folks who are leaving our commission and those who are going to be joining our commission or have re-upped. First of all, I have the honor of thanking the Honorable David Feldman, who has served effectively on our commission to 2019. David has represented the city of Palm Springs very, very well. He was really key in our concessions project and helping to scope out the concessions. That project started in 2019, was renewed in 2021. He joined the ad hoc committee of those commissioners who worked with staff to further refine what happened with our concession strategy. David also led the charge with the art commission, trying desperately to get fresh art into the airport, and was a real leader in trying to scope out what our requirements were and how things would move forward. He also served effectively on the operations committee and also on the budget committee. And David, you've always been a great voice of reason for our commission, and on behalf of the city and city council, I want to thank you for your 6 years, and I wish you all the best. And thanks again for everything you've done for our commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Also, we want to bid farewell to Robert. Robert's effectively represented Indian Wells for this term. This term, that's right, and many others. Again, thank you for your perspectives, for your insights, for stepping up and having a strong point of view in many of the issues that we've dealt with here. It's been a real pleasure to work with you. And on behalf of the city, thank you for your service here. Thank you. Absolutely. Excited to announce that both Todd and Samantha have been reappointed to the Airport Commission. Todd by a special 1-year extension to City Council, and Samantha reappointed for what will be your second term here. Again, so thrilled to have your leadership. Todd obviously is the right-hand person in terms of the vice chair of the commission. Samantha running our marketing subcommittee. We thank you both for your leadership. We're thrilled to have you back with us, and on behalf of the city, thank you for your support and your time here. Kevin Weissman, who is not here tonight, but his term has been extended by Palm Desert, and those of you know, Kevin has been a super member of this team. He runs one of our subcommittees as well, and we're thrilled that his term has been extended by Palm Desert. Happy to announce that Tim Scheffler has been appointed by City Council as a new mission member. Tim will explain a little bit about his background in a second, but I can tell you that Tim is a major leader in the Neighborhood Association's vice president of 1PS, and has been attending our meetings for over a year to get deep into the issues and to understand what's going on. So Tim, on behalf of City Council and City, welcome, and also your fellow commissioners. Give us 1 or 2 minutes about your background, if you would, please.
You kind of hit the points. I'm Tim Scheffler. I've been living in Palm Springs for 4 years. I live in Old Los Palmas, and I'm on the neighborhood organization board there, heading up both their home tours and also their beautification committee. Additionally, I'm vice chairman of 1PS, which is the organization that meets every week and every month, rather. Jake did a great job last week in front of our group. And professionally, I've been a financial advisor for almost 45 years, and still active in doing that. But fortunately, the market's closed at 1 o'clock and gives me the afternoon free to my other pursuits. So looking forward to being part of the commission going forward.
Well, welcome. We look forward to welcoming you to the table July meeting when your appointment becomes official. And sometime today, Brenda may stop in and give you the swearing in process. Last announcement I want to make is an award, a discussion of the Public Impact Award that the airport received from the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce. Several of us were invited to the big dinner that happened last week, where the airport and Harry received a special recognition by the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber. And I wanted to do 2 things: just give Harry an opportunity just to share a little bit about the award and how excited we get, but also ask Harry if he would share the remarks that he shared with this audience of 700, 800 people that were there. Those of us who work on the commission, the staff that was there, we were really, really proud, not only to receive this, but the remarks that Harry made. I think it really moved the audience. And Harry, you want to give us a little background, and would you mind sharing your comments?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure if Jake, you're with them. Probably not, but it came with a lot of certificates from a lot of very important people. So I'll just share those and pass those around. But we were contacted by the Greater Coachella Valley Chambers of Commerce, and they let us know that when this was the first year they offered the Public Impact Award. And they've acknowledged that the airport really is impactful to the valley, both in the programs that we've implemented over the last few years, our outreach efforts, the things that we're striving to do that we have not yet done, but they really found it inspirational. And so a number of the chambers got together and unanimously voted on the airport as the recipient of this award. So I had the opportunity to accept the award at a very nice dinner. And I had written a speech that I didn't think was going to go global, but apparently it did. So I'll read it for you now. The words public impact have true significance. And when I was informed that our team was being recognized for a public impact award, I thought about how we collectively rallied over the last year to bring the community into the airport and how we worked to create positive touch points. We did a lot of incredible things over the last year. We substantially overhauled our concessions program with a focus on incorporating local entrepreneurs into the airport business ecosystem. We engaged in over 60 community meetings to workshop our master plan in partnership with our communities. Most airports fail to do this, but we wanted to make sure to get it right. We adopted a strategic plan rooted in innovation, exceptional customer service, operational excellence, and community partnerships to advance initiatives we had historically not focused on, such as being a champion for STEM education for our future workforce. We took bold approaches to our in-house advertising programs by building community-centric relationships to elevate the marketing of our local services. And our recent economic impact report showed that our organization produced over $2.5 billion in regional economic output and supports over 18,000 jobs generated from our air service development activities. And we're just getting started. Earlier this year, PSP adopted a mission. It simply states, moving you with unforgettable hospitality. We are working to build a culture that truly embraces that mission. Whether we're being of service to the young couple who has come to enjoy a short weekend, a family sending their beloved son or daughter overseas to defend our nation, or a local resident returning home, our aim is to tirelessly provide unforgettable hospitality. So on behalf of the 137 members who represent Team PSP, as well as our airlines, rental car companies, fixed base operators, and tenants such as the Palm Springs Air Museum, and also on behalf of our 19-member Airport Commission, City Manager, and City Council of Palm Springs, I thank the Greater Coachella Valley Chambers of Commerce for recognizing Team PSP for what they do. I'm accepting this award not as a finish line, but as a reminder of our responsibility to keep improving, keep connecting, and to keep moving this community with unforgettable hospitality.
You're here. Congratulations. Well done, Harry. You made us proud. And congratulations to staff, certainly to the leadership and to our commissioners who are all part of this award. So happy to see that. All right, we're going to move on to Section 8 discussion and action items. The first is our favorite, escalators update. Harry, want to give us an update, please?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. So
Turn on your microphones. There you go. Good.
I did not realize this was working. So we wanted to provide the commission with an update on the escalators. I know it's been a hot topic for the last many months. And the airport team has really done some in-depth analysis on this. We've had many discussions with our engineers, our contractors. We've been having discussions with the city manager. And we wanted to provide an update to the commission on not only what the issues are, but what the potential alternatives and plans are going forward. So we invited our on-call contractor, Joel from RFNH, to provide a briefing to the commission, and then we'll take questions after that. So I'm going to turn it over to Joel.
Good afternoon, my name is Joel Erickson, I'm a senior aviation engineer with RSNH. We work on sharing my screen here.
Joel, just to a minute on who your company is, your firm, please.
Absolutely. So RSNH is a full service architectural engineering consulting firm. We work across the country. I'm here in the Southwest Division. And one of our specialties is airports and kind of all things airports, whether it's architecture or engineering. In particular, I do a range of airfield engineering projects for Jeremy and Harry, the team here at Palm Springs. And I'm not an escalator expert myself. I'm kind of a jack of all trades engineer for airports in general. So I'm actually going to introduce you to a partner consulting firm, VDA, who's also here in attendance with me. If you want to get into the weeds on the escalators, they're going to be able to help out with that a bit better.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Misty Munoz, and I represent VDA. I'm the Vice President of the West Coast region, based in Los Angeles. Thank you for having us. And similar to Joel, we handle all things vertical transportation. We're a nationwide company. We have close to 200 consultants here in the U.S. And from commercial to public to private, we oversee vertical transportation upgrades, inspections, modernization, and new design. And I'm joined here by my colleague, Jeffson.
Pleasure to be here. Like Misty said, worked for VDA for the last 4 years. Been a consultant for the last almost 20 years, and in the business probably 25, 26 years at this point. All things vertical transportation.
All right, absolutely. Just stop me if you have any questions, if you want to get clarity on any of the things that I reviewed here. So just from a quick agenda standpoint, I go through the known issues, some of the alternative solutions that we've identified. Really, can I go into some of the site challenges for replacement at Palm Springs and go through some other suggestions that we've developed as well for the escalators. So our known issues are excessive downtime, and there's a bit of differentiation there. You have sensor activated versus you have maintenance and repairs. Sensor activated downtimes are downtimes that you want. You want the escalator to trip if something gets snagged at the end or along the side of it for safety concerns. But the maintenance and repair downtimes are the real critical issue. One of the escalators has had 8 of those in this last year. The other one's had 10. That's in the last 12-month period. And my understanding from talking to VDA, you expect that to be once per quarter, so about 4 per year. So there's more downtime than there should be. There's about 36 hours. It could be up to 36 hours of response time before you have someone respond, and then they may not have the parts. And so talking with Jacob, there's been times where it's been multiple weeks of downtime for a single event. We know that there was an in-truss replacement, and we'll go into a discussion on what an in-truss replacement is in a little bit. But there was one of those done 9 years ago on these particular escalators. The escalators their maintenance is managed through a state certified contractor. And again, that triggers a situation where it can be up to 36 hours for them to respond to operational issues. There's clear long-term wear damage to the handrail tracks. There's escalator operations resulting in noise. That wear damage is also causing kind of a repetitive knocking sound. Well, everyone's had a chance to be out there, but it's quite apparent. It's both units. Another known issue is operating outdoors. Not all escalators are fit for purpose to be outdoors, and these escalators were not originally fit for that purpose. And the other item that we've identified is there is quite a bit of exposure to late day sun. There is the escalator units themselves get well over 100 degrees in heat just from sitting in the sun as part of their operation. Some alternative solutions that there's really kind of 3 main solutions that everything will fit into. One is Kone doing a repair in place. So Kone's input has been that these escalators shouldn't be in the condition they're in at this point. So one option is to bring them in, have them evaluate and recommend repairs as this is their unit from the in-truss modification done several years back. Have them give a complete evaluation, recommend repairs to bring it back into expected service levels. The second alternative solution is an in-truss modification. That is where they strip the entire escalator down to only the physical truss that supports the structure, and the in-truss modification supplier will basically measure that truss, design a custom insert or custom solution to be built into that truss. And then once they've produced all the parts and they've ordered everything, they'll come on site, they'll strip everything out down to the trusses, and they'll install everything they need to basically build a new escalator mechanically in that existing physical truss. And that is similar to what you had done about 9 years ago. And then the final option is a replacement upgrade, and that is to remove those existing escalators completely. It's going to involve modifying the structure of the concourse, and the intent here would be to install something to what's called APTA standard. That is kind of the peak standard for an escalator that's going to be outdoors in terms of its rating, its ability to handle load, and its ability to handle the ambient environment. Some costs and some schedule implications that go with that. These are fairly preliminary, especially this one in particular, the Kone repair and place. Design, procure, install, you're looking at around $350,000 for both escalators, with about $85,000 in design. And I had to click get that show up. You know, we kind of have a caveat, an asterisk there on the escalator part. The further investigation really is required. This estimate addresses really what we could identify as the current operational noise, which is to do with the tracks and the chain, the step chain. And we can obviously go into that if we need to. This one comes with a situation where for about, it's only about a month. This really has the lowest impact from a schedule perspective. If we move forward with design starting in August, by mid-August, we could be initiating with TK. TK will have to have some involvement as they're the current maintenance contractor. And then TK will have to kind of use TK to bring in Kone. At least that's our current understanding of how this would all work. So by sometime in November, you've got that wrapped up. That'll be a little bit of an interesting procurement process. Kone gets an NTP in early December, and work really could commence in early January, with really only about a month of downtime. And that downtime is one escalator at a time. So they would keep one running and then they would work on the other. This, again, there's a really getting Kone in here to look at this and go into the weeds and validate that it really is just those two issues that need to be addressed, or are there more problems that there's an element of removing all the steps and really spending a day out there in the pits to really understand the full needs to bring those back to a more operational state without the downtimes. The Entrust modification cost goes up a bit here. It's about $600,000 per escalator for this project, so 1.2 overall. Design goes up a little bit more in here, somewhat to do with the construction administration, just having some validation that goes in. So around 1.4 total. And again, that's got a little bit of a longer lead time on it. Design starting August 1st. Bids going out mid-September. Project NTP sometime in the beginning of 2026. There's about a 20-week time period for them to fabricate everything. They'll come out, and there will be a little bit of an operational disruption when they come out and they disassemble everything and measure it and return it to service. And then 20 weeks of design, fabrication, procurement, and then they come back on site to install, again, one at a time. So there will be a period of time where you have just one escalator in service. This is a longer period of time. It's about 16 weeks or 4 months per escalator for installation here. So roughly May of next year, first one being starting that work, first one being operational in mid-September, and the last one being operational in early 27. Then you've got replacement and upgrade. This comes with quite a bit of an additional amount of work that will go into it. Structural modifications, we anticipate there will be some seismic aspects to the structural modifications, just based on when the building was designed and built versus now. And the current seismic codes, it's around 3 million. There will need to be some sort of temporary stair and ramp set up. Can't just take these out of service. We've got to provide for ingress and egress to the concourse, and that's around $200,000 for fabricated, temporary, but more of a permanent fixture in terms of it's not going to just be scaffolding and bolted together like Lincoln logs. It'll be fabricated specialty for the site. chiller relocation. Underneath this escalator is portions of the chiller plant. And the chiller plant will really have to be relocated to allow for the new structure to be built to receive these new escalators. Newer escalator models require a much larger pit at the top of the stairs and another larger pit at the bottom of the stairs, which will require kicking into the room that has all the chiller equipment. And I've got photos to kind of walk through, give a picture of what we're looking at. We're going to reroute some of the communication facilities that go into the concourse. Then there's the escalator procurement. These are about $1 million per, and that's designed, fabricated, and then dropped into site. And then about $1 million in design and construction. And we expect quite a bit of design to go into that structure as well as the chillers. It has a much longer timeline to it. Design and TP in August. We assume for expediency's sake, a CMAR type of contract where a GC can help us as we go. They can give you a not to exceed price for the comms relocation. That might be able to start a little earlier. But you're looking at 6 to 7 months of no escalators whatsoever and using temporary stairs. At some point, the demo has to start. And throughout all that time, this is a rough timeline. Design and permitting done in March. You can order the escalators, but that's also when you start work on the structure and relocating communications, relocating the chillers. And then really your structural modifications have to be completed before you get that first escalator completed. And that's when you actually have an escalator back again, and you're looking at first quarter of 2027. So this is quite an invasive and quite an expensive option. You will come out of this with the highest grade escalators in terms of APTA, which is American Public Transit Authority. They actually have their own standard for escalators that are meant to be outside and handle high loads. So we've kind of scorecarded this in terms of green is roughly good, I guess, relative to the other options. Red is bad, or larger, more severe impact, and yellow being somewhere in the middle. So you've got kind of, in-trust modification comes in at a pretty low cost relative, especially to the replacement and upgrade. The Kone repair and place, there's still some validation and a study from Kone to really validate that. But we don't see that going into the multi-millions of dollars. That price range should still be a green, if you will. Schedule is kind of a sliding scale. The repair and place has the lowest schedule impact, and replacement and upgrade really has the longest schedule impact. And part of that's not just the overall duration, part of that's the 6 to 7 months of no escalators whatsoever. And that's kind of how we've graded that in terms of schedule impact. Passenger experience, again, this goes to using temporary facilities to get up and down to the concourse. There's going to be a lot of work to be done to maintain that elevator access throughout all there. The passenger experience just isn't going to be very great for any of these, but it's much lower for the in-trust and the Kone. And in serviceable life, with both the in-trust modification and the replacement and upgrade, you're getting essentially a new unit that will have a long and known serviceable life. The Kone repair and place, we're not really sure what kind of serviceable life you get out of that. Again, the detailed investigation will really provide a window into, is it just the two things we think it is, and if those can be replaced, then you've got 2 to 3 more years to game out the long-term solution, or are they going to find 5 other things that we can't see without pulling steps? That investigation is to occur on Kone repair and place.
When you say serviceable life, you reference long. I think I heard you say long. What does long roughly mean for the first time? Oh, sorry. What does long actually mean regarding serviceable life?
So a typical escalator would be a 30-40 year lifespan. That's what we would see, all things being equal, service being proper. APTAs are usually a little bit longer than that just because of the robust nature of what you're buying. You're buying a battleship in essence, so it's much heavier, much bigger steel, weighs more, and so it traditionally lasts longer, but more expensive to take care of. And so that's what we're talking about for serviceable life, for the in-trust and for the complete rip out of the place. For the repair, we're not exactly sure, right? Because we don't know exactly what's wrong. And the escalators there are 9 years old, and we're not sure that service has been kept at the level that it should be. And they're outdoors, so you have the heat and you also have, dust and sand. That gets blown in there. And so in essence, all of that is coming up and kind of wearing out equipment sooner rather than later. So we don't know, even if we did the repairs to get you units that were more reliable, why we looked at what the long-term solution would be. There's no way to tell, does that get by you another 2 years? Does it buy you another 4 years? So that's part of what the unknown is. And certainly until we pull out steps and diagnose not just what we think is going on, but what actually is happening inside, it's kind of a wait and see at this point.
Please.
I'm wondering, you had, at the very beginning, you identified a number of problems that you believe are at the root of the problems we're having right now. Things like the fact that it's outdoors, it's exposed to heat, the bands are showing significant wear, that list you had at the beginning, the known issues. What I'm wondering is, if you do a Kone repair, and I'm guessing that what that does is that once that repair is done, it leaves us with the same escalator we have now, exposed to the elements, with sand, with heat, and I'm guessing that in the next 10 to 20 years, the heat and the sand are not going away. So we're stuck with the same escalator. If you do the second option, which is the in-truss, what type of escalator does that leave us with? And is it going to be exposed? Is there going to be the same problem of exposure to heat, exposure to sand? And finally, the third option, you mentioned that it is sort of a battleship. What can we expect if we hunt down that large sum by the battleship? Are we going to get reliable heat, better heat resistant, better sand resistant escalators?
So it's kind of a layered question. Let's take it from the beginning. So to the first part of it, which is if we do some of the repairs, what are we left with? You're correct. We're left with the same escalator that we have currently, which is the in-truss mod that was done 9 years ago. We were not a part of that. So one of the questions that we have from the very beginning is when the in-truss mod was done, the escalator that was there was a commercial grade that you would say put in your Macy's in your vault, right? That was what was initially installed. When the in-truss mod was done, did they take into account the outdoor environment and the sand, or did they just replace like for like? And that's not known to us, right? We weren't part of it, and we couldn't see the internals. And it's not like if I asked Kone or the crews over there, of course we did the best we could, right? No one's going to tell me that that's not what they did, right? But we look at what we've got is that 9 years down the road, we've got significant problems. Part of the long-term solution is not just the product that we look at potentially putting in, but it's increasing the quality and the number of service that's times it's being done to the two escalators. As it stands now, and having a conversation with TK and TK mechanic, is that he's out here all the time and he's doing the best that he can. But the service that they're providing is not providing the level of service that you need for outdoor escalators and for the condition that you have with regards to the sand. So one of the things we would look at is traditionally you look at it cleaned out of an escalator once a year. All the steps come out, crew comes in, they lubricate, they clean everything out to elongate its lifespan. Okay, in our environment with the heat and with the sand, that might be more once a quarter. Okay, so that's not happening. There are a couple other factors that we can talk about, right, with regards to time frame that the escalators run. Even at night, they're not shut down. Again, think of it as mileage in a car. 10, 11 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, your escalators are running. That's mileage on these that no one's using them. There's also another feature that we would look at for a long-term solution, which is a slowdown feature. If no one's using the escalator, certain times in between flights arriving, they slow themselves down. So again, in terms of cars, because that makes sense to people, we just go slower. Instead of freeway driving, now we're just putt-putt along in the neighborhood, which means it's less wear and tear on the equipment. It's not running at top speed anymore. So these are some of the things that would be implemented in option 2 and option 3. And all of the options would require that service be improved to get a better reliability from the system and to elongate their lives.
Thank you.
Kendrick.
Okay. So. I mean, I like option 3. It's the way we should go, but. You know, having 14, 15 months where you've got construction. And if you look at the demographics of of the valley, there are not a lot of people who can get up and down steps. The elevator is going to be overloaded. People would have problems getting their luggage up and down. That just doesn't seem to work. There's also the issue of, are we going to have the Sonny Bono terminal 40 years from now? I mean, 40 years from now, that may be gone because we're doing the next expansion for the facility. So it may be overkill, but maybe not. My question is, what if we did option A as a short-term solution to give us 2 or 3 years? I mean, that's at least downtown. And is there a way that we have it running? Is there a way that we can relocate the staircase by spreading them out or moving them slightly to the left or to the right to where we can do that construction and take the 2 years, the 3 years to get it done right, but we still have an operating staircase that goes up and down?
So I think the question is there, rather than building temporary stairs as part of a, try to crash the schedule as much as possible, do an improvement to put in some new stair facilities that will support having the escalators down longer? Is that?
So the existing escalators, I don't think that's a landmark building, correct?
No, it is not.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about like for like we do with the terminal. Leave the existing escalators where they are. Do your basic repair job. Hope that it lasts 3 to 4 years.
Buy some time. Yeah.
Buy some time. While you're doing that, you're doing the best option, option 1, or option, I guess it's option 3, but you're relocating those staircases to the left, to the right, or on either side. So that way you can do all your construction work. The public is not being impacted for a long period of time.
We have not looked at what the structure, the planters, and a lot of that is structural. We've not looked at like what that would look like to put in. You're talking about stairs or escalators?
Escalators. You're going to put in your fancy battleship escalators. You may put them side by side to the left or to the right, or you maybe have the up on one side and the down on the other side of the existing staircase. And then at some point, when the existing staircase fails, we'll just rip it out.
You've got other escalators you're using.
Yeah.
We have not looked at the structure for whether we could fit them in off to the side. You do have a lot of back of house facilities underneath that whole structure. So that would be, we would need to go into those other rooms and see what's under those locations to understand what it would take to put in a pit at the top. You know, the size of that pit that's needed for the APTA doesn't change wherever we put it.
Right.
So I'll need to come back to you. It's definitely, there's, yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner, we can look at that as an option, and I think there are also some more economical things that we can do to enhance these alternatives that may get us to what we need. For example, one of the discussions we've been having internally is maybe to combat some of the weather-related issues, find a way to cover the escalators and enclose them, and that
that'll reduce the sand and wind and sun impacts on escalators, but we can look at some other alternatives.
Other comments or questions?
Got a question on, you just suggested, are you suggesting,
You need to, like,
are you suggesting an option for basically abandon what we have, find a new spot for escalators? Cause I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, yes, but we're going to keep the existing escalators while we.
Until the new ones.
So-
Yeah, until the new ones are done, and that way it mitigates. That way it mitigates the impact on the public.
Mhm.
And again, you know, our average age is what, 55 plus?
Yep.
And we're not good at carrying luggage up and down, let alone getting up and down steps.
Mhm.
So, and I am sure that if we start depending on the elevator to be running constantly jam full of people, we're gonna have that down, so there'll be no access for people with limited abilities. And that would be a real problem.
So let me just respond to a couple of things you said, Ken. I think our 20-year vision is that we keep the Bono concourse, correct?
But we're buying a 40-year facility, we're buying a 40-year escalator.
Right. But our long-range plan calls on us to keep it. So we're not gonna make any changes to that. You know, if you were looking at another side of the airport, then I'd be more concerned about just the length of that. Our forecast is $2.2 billion, right? In our 20-year plan to do everything we've talked about in our long-range plan. So I looked at that number and thought, well, in the context of that investment, and the fact that these escalators are so important to get us to the 10 gates up there, that 7 million, if it is 7 million, relative to that, may be a smarter investment in terms of the long-range plan. But it still doesn't address the customer service issue. So in a discussion we had with Harry and staff, I gave some feedback around, I think you were aware in our last meeting, we said that we have 2 employees that have been taken off baggage claim, and they're at the bottom of the staircase, and they're supposed to be assisting people up and down when these escalators don't work. I've observed twice where there are 2 employees there when I was leaving, when I was coming back in the last 10 days, and people were struggling up those stairs, right, and not getting the support. So one of the suggestions we had was, do we really put this initiative on steroids? And we have 2 or 3 people for however long it's going to take, who have uniforms or whatever that say, you know, we're here to help you up and down these stairs or onto our brand new elevators, which are going in. You know, do we really lean into that service in an effort to try to overcome that huge objection, which is, you know, how long are they doing schlepping up and down? But if we really put a program around it and made people accountable, maybe get a little muscle from our friends in marketing about how do we spin this, that could be a way to mitigate the time it's going to take to put in this escalator. The other thing is, if we're successful, whether it's the car rental piece or baggage claim, any of the pieces of our long range plan, you know, our community is going to have to get used to being in construction. And you saw, I was at LAX yesterday in Terminal 4. I mean, they're doing the American Airlines thing in phases, but you know, everywhere you go, it's harden our dusk. And I think we're going to have to prepare the community, whatever we do, to do this. So option 1 to me, with all the unknowns, doesn't seem like a smart investment because it seems like we're just going to get stuck with where we are now. 2, I think, is a possibility, the in-trust piece, but unless we're confident that we're going to have a real ROI on that investment, I'm wondering if we don't bite the bullet, since we're looking at $2.2 billion anyways, to do it right now. I have some agita about 27. It's a long time to wait for this. But after hearing your comments about the sun, the dust, these are the wrong escalators to put in anyways, not built for this thing. You know, is a Band-Aid the right thing for us to do? And if we can mitigate the issue around customer service with a real strong program to help people get up and down those stairs, is that just part of, you know, the effort to lean in and try to make a smart investment that's going to pay off long term? And again, if we didn't have this long range plan, I think we'd say, you know, take the middle one. spend $2 million and be done with it. But I think we have to remember the bigger picture here. I mean, we're about to, we hope, if we get the funding, engage in a $2.2 billion investment in this facility. Should we be doing making this particular city decision in light of that? And just spend the money, do it right now with the confidence based on what you're telling us with that certification and everything else you're talking about, that we're going to have escalators that work. And yes, it's going to take a lot longer than I think any of us would like to do. But if we can mitigate the customer service piece, maybe that's a better investment long term. And the Bono Concourse is going to be there for at least 20 years. So, long after all of us are around, but still. So a $7 million investment for 20 years with that type of guarantee, as much as you can guarantee, the quality of the system seems to me like a better investment. But interested in thoughts or reactions to that.
So I would agree with you. I mean, the public is very forgiving. And with a good marketing program with Jake and his folks, I have all the confidence in the world that they'll have proper advertising and things that we need to do. You boost up a concierge program. I think most of us here probably travel regularly or some form. Every airport I've gone to has construction long term, and we're looking at long term. I don't look at it as, well, 20 years or however many. We don't know what the future holds, but we know that a Band-Aid is going to require higher maintenance. It's going to break down more, and we're going to be back here in 2 years having the same conversation
For a $10 million solution.
for wondering why we didn't do this. Instead, sometimes you just have to buy the new AC unit instead of plugging the holes, because it's just going to cost you more in August versus May. So you spend the money and you do it. The great thing is that I see this, though, on the flip side I see this as a very positive thing. I would say, hey, Jake, promote this in a positive way, that this is the beginning of our beginning of the transformation of what we're doing here, and you're beginning the first stage of it is through this top tier, the appropriate level type of escalator that we're going to have. Show pictures of it, show live pictures, show a video of it, where people get to see it out that way. Have concierge that can, hey, we're going to here and help you and do this kind of thing. I understand, where some of the reservation may be, and we're concerned about that, but I'd rather go a certain amount of time of a little bit of inconvenience for some versus having this breakdown every 8 months and being out 2 weeks and whatever at a time. And that's what will happen. I mean, let's just call it what it is. That will happen. And so when you add up all those small little breaks, do they equal at least 50% of the time that we're going to take off anyways to do the overall thing? So let's go with a bang and let's start it off with something positive, because then when the next big phase, the new terminal comes, we're able to say, we got this really killer escalator that's top tier escalator. And guess what? Now we're going to the next phase. I see it as a win-win all the way around.
1 second, Hendrik. Commissioner Feltman had a question. Feltman?
Yeah, I have a comment. So clearly we need to do something. We can't have an escalator in our main terminal continuously broken down. The staff and the ongoing commission figure out which one to do. But I haven't heard a discussion about we need to do an accelerated construction project, that we are doing this project 24/7 for the next X number of months or whatever the duration is, and we're going to pay for it. And for our biggest terminal, most of our traffic goes through there. In my opinion, we are not going to market our way out of the inconvenience. People are going to feel really great that they're falling down the stairs and having somebody at the bottom to catch them because we tell them this is the future. To me, that doesn't fly. We need to spend a lot of money to get this project done as fast as reasonably possible.
So thanks for reminding me, Steve, because one of the things we had suggested to staff was, do we put in incentives into this contract that will pay for, as David says, 24/7, whatever it's going to take to accelerate the delivery of these escalators? And is that something through the RFP process or the bidding process that contractors would respond to?
Vice Chair, you had a question, Burke?
I have a comment. I think that was Commissioner Voss earlier. I'm also in the same camp as he and the chairman. I think, and first of all, I have complete faith in the marketing team that they will come up with unique and creative ways to continue sharing this information as we move forward with the public, as well as the operations team in mitigating what those customer service issues will be. We just can't simply continue to blow out the same candle when it comes to the dust and the heat and the other elements. So I stand behind the replace and upgrade.
Tracy?
Hi there. Maybe I'm missing something. I totally understand the desire for the gold Cadillac option, but when you look at the chart on the screen right now, I see two greens and 2 yellows compared to 3 reds. And so maybe I'm not understanding why the in-trust modification approach is not as good as the replacement and upgrade approach. Can somebody explain that to me?
Got to put them up.
Yeah, back up.
Go ahead.
I keep the 20 years for the Bloom Concourse. That's what I kept hearing and kind of latched onto. And so I just chatted with Jeff a little bit. I'm gonna have him go into the weeds on why it's actually a green square for the serviceable life on in-trust modification as well, because I think it's pertinent to the 20-year forecast for the terminal.
So traditional in-trust mod that wasn't an outdoor escalator is still a 25 to 30 year when it's completed. In this particular case, because we don't know what was done 9 years ago, what we would do in that scenario is we would specify the conditions that we would, or the equipment that we would need for the conditions. So we wouldn't replace like for like, we would replace what's there with equipment that's more suitable to the environment that we have. Now, again, you still have to do service, and we still have to look at what the sand and the heat does to things. But there is equipment that's more that is designed for outdoor use, and what was originally put in there was not. And we're not sure that the equipment that was put in there 9 years ago took that into account, right? We don't know if there was budget constraints, VE items that were done. We don't want to pay for that, and so put in what will get us by, which is the least downtime, and that's what was done. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying we don't know, and so in the process of doing the in-trust mod, we would specify that we want the better equipment.
So are you saying that the interest mod could get us 20 years of total useful life?
Yes.
If we're basically taking this down to the studs and putting the newer version on top of that?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that changes the.
Yeah. So, and if I misspoke before, I apologize, but yes, that would be the case, that what would be specified in the in-trust mod would still be looking at getting you the 20 plus years. And all of this is based on proper service, right?
So does that include your service contract, the numbers that we budgeted here on the screen?
We didn't look into the service contract. That wasn't something that was provided to us. That's just strictly installation costs. We would then, the request that we have now is to look at what you have from the service agreement, and we would help modify that so that what you're getting is what we would expect for the conditions that we have.
I hate to put you on the spot, but just to kind of ballpark it, because we're all kind of doing the math here in real time. What would you say roughly, service wise for the cone, in-trust, and the full Cadillac replacement?
Right? We wanted to look at what the value of the current maintenance agreement is now, because it's going to be above and beyond whatever you're saying now, right?
So you couldn't put a percentage, like here's the cost, we're
It
kind of
probably
figuring about 15-20%.
Probably 10% more than what you're paying now, 20% more.
Okay.
Margaret.
Just wondering, does staff have a recommendation?
We wanted to hear some opinions from the commission, but there are a couple things. There's one thing I actually wanted to address, that Commissioner Kaufman brought up. So the issue of time and making sure that we're getting this done, in an efficient and quick manner. The issue is not so much operational as it is manufacturing the parts to get here, producing those parts specifically to get here so that we can do the install, and then timing it just right so that it has the least impact to our customer experience. So we have the parts are great, but it doesn't help us if we're in our peak because then we can't do anything. And I'm not even sure, and maybe Joel or somebody from the team can address it. We can manufacture parts quicker than 20 weeks. So that's one issue. The other is the dollar spend within the context of our larger capital program and trying to move some of these other projects forward. You'll probably hear a little bit later in this meeting that we've got some project costs that have come back a little bit higher than it's expected. And so we really have to balance what else we need to do in the future years versus what we can afford to do and maintain today. So those are the two things. Our recommendation right now is the in-trust modification. We think that gives us the best bang for our buck, but we really wanted to hear feedback from the commission.
Can somebody answer my question about the
I know.
putting incentives in the contracts? Would that work?
You can definitely put incentives in the contract. There's a couple of things where you can realize that the best would be in some of the structural modification work, where you could relocate that chiller plant. That could also be a situation where incentives and 24/7 work. You could buy time, right? There's cost, there's budget, there's quality. You can pick two, right? Everyone's going to have to slip. So you can definitely buy some time on those. On the manufacturing of the escalator equipment, that's not really where a lot of your time is it's actually faster to do the replacement and upgrade from an escalator supplier perspective. It's just all the other work that goes into it that's driving that replacement and upgrade schedule. You could buy that time. I will say it's very expensive in California to buy time on delivery projects. It is not just double the labor. It is more than double the labor just from the way overtime rules work here. And there's a lot that goes in.
We actually have Commissioner Martin. Do you have a question?
I didn't raise my hand, but I do have a question. I still don't feel like I truly understand why the in-trust is not the way we go, given lower costs, comparable serviceable life, and schedule isn't better. So if somebody could just tell me why, other than we want to have something that's top grade. I mean, help me out. I just don't get why it's not obvious to everyone.
I'll just jump in, Commissioner Martin. Once I heard that the in-trust modification could have up to a 20-year on its serviceable life. I'm absolutely more interested in learning more about that.
I think it would be helpful if this schedule that's on the screen, in addition to the color, showed the cost for in-trust versus replacement, the schedule, the serviceable life, so that we can actually see them side by side. I know that's hard to do on the fly, but if somebody could walk through, remind us what's the cost for one versus the other, what's the serviceable life for one versus the other, what's the schedule for one versus the other.
As you're doing that, and I agree with what you say, it's easy to see the visual, but question about this chiller piece, because again, I don't speak fluent escalator, and I'm not sure everybody in the room here does either. What impact does that have? Are we moving this chiller? Does that affect operations for you guys?
Yes, it's a huge.
Do we have to move it if we do the in-trust there?
We do not.
Okay, so the only reason to move the chiller and some of these other things would be if we do the full replacement.
Correct.
Hence, the timeline goes longer because of that element. Thank you for explaining that.
And Joel has some, some visuals. We actually had slides here on the presentation. You can actually show you what that looks like.
Since we're talking chiller room, I'll jump to those slides real quick and then I can come back and plug in the schedule numbers because I think it is helpful to see them side by side for sure. So the site challenges we have with the chiller plant, so directly underneath the stairs in the back of house area underneath the passenger platform, there's a chiller plant, there's switchgear, electrical switchgear to feed that. You have the elevator tower, which is integral with the structure. You do have a narrow entry already to the concourse. You have occupant load for the concourse from a building code perspective. There will definitely need to be some accommodation before you can rip into those escalators. That raised platform area for the passengers by building code has to accommodate a certain amount of ingress and egress at all times. So that occupant load has to be observed at all times. And then there are the unique structural challenges. So looking underneath the escalators, you can see on that first photo, to the upper right of that photo is a slanted shape to the concrete over those electrical cabinets. That is underneath one of the escalators. And so the flat roof above that is the pit for the current escalator and would need to be modified quite extensively, which will necessitate all those pipes, but also the pumps on the ground at the bottom of those pictures being relocated. The next photo is just another example of the chiller plant. This is the junction piping over the pumps that a lot of that will have to be redone. It'll have to be removed and relocated. And talking with our mechanical engineers, the cost of doing this is so high that it isn't likely that we would relocate it and then bring it all back in there. We would need to do an effort to find a place in the facility or adjacent to the facility to actually relocate this chiller plant once and just be done with it. It gets quite expensive to bring it all back in if it would even fit. So this is just another angle in that room underneath the stairs. Over on the right, above the dry erase board, you can see more of that angled slope of the concrete ceiling. That's the other escalator, and to the left is the other concrete slope just hidden by the pipe. So you are, the roof above that you're seeing with all the conduit and the fire protection piping, all that roof gets busted out and new pits get put in for the larger escalators.
It seems to come full circle here.
I'm sorry.
It seems like we've come full circle here. You're telling us that if we take the medium thing for $1 million+, we have high confidence we'll have 20 years of life there.
Yes,
Commissioner Feltman, your hand's raised. Feltman? Is your mic muted? Okay, he moved.
Come back to
Maybe this is for Harry. Are there any tenant issues, downstairs, relocation issues, storerooms, or retail or anything like that? Would anybody else be displaced?
Not immediately under the escalators. That area under the escalators is our maintenance shop for our maintenance shop. So it would impact us the most. However, if we need to relocate it, then either spaces within that tenants could be impacted.
Yes. I like the interest, but I will say I was inspired by Commissioner Boss. I was ready to go help build this.
Yeah. Probably volunteer to do that.
But there's a 20-week inconvenience for interest. Did I write that down correct? I'm very afraid of those chillers and things of that nature, because usually you'll find other problems that you didn't anticipate. So that kind of scares me, and the cost scares me as well. And Commissioner Hendricks, I do see where you were going. So is there another way to come up with creative ways to help people get from point A to point B during this 20 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we do. It's creative when we ask them to, and that would apply here as well.
to the point about additional stairways, I know there's an option for that. I will say that anytime we add elements of complexity to the project, that does add cost, it does add time. So from our perspective, really the entrust modification is probably the best way to get there without compromising too much time, too much cost, of getting what we need.
So are you looking for our support on that recommendation tonight?
We are.
All right. We got enough?
Yep.
We're good. Can I have a proposal, please?
Motion to approve the in-trust modification and potentially look at ways to accelerate the timeline if that's a possibility.
Second.
Okay, roll call, we'll go ahead. Banks,
Yes.
Berryman,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Beltman,
Yes.
Bong,
Aye.
Hedrick,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Park,
Yes.
Sam Lanska,
Yes.
Voss,
Yes.
Wise.
Yes.
Okay, good to go.
Harry, next steps on this?
Next steps, we still have to do some background work, in terms of getting our engineers to allow some time. But that's pretty easy, task order, and then we're on to the on getting this thing done. Again, we're looking at not lengthy, but we're looking at some kind of design. Sometime for actually manufacturing and producing the equipment that needs to happen, and then we would be on track to take those escalators down somewhere around the beginning of May next year and getting those.
Does it have to go to council?
Our contract, I believe it does, but I think, yeah. That's
And do we have any public comments as well?
Any public comments about this?
Anyone on Zoom wish to make a public comment, please raise your virtual Zoom hand. Anybody in the room? No public comment.
Great discussion. Thank you all. Appreciate your insights. All right, Christina, art curator update.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners. I have a brief update for you today on the art curator RFP. We are finalizing the art curator RFP, and staff is intending on presenting the art curator consultative agreement at the July Airport Commission meeting. Any questions?
Can you talk about who you're selecting?
Not at the time, it is not finalized. We need a little bit more time, we'll definitely have questions together. We are intending on having that for you at the July.
Okay.
Commission.
Are you securing this art curator through the city's procurement process?
That is correct. We did. We went out for bid and we have completed our interviews. We're just finalizing to make our determination.
Thank you.
Is it appropriate to get input just on the process from our commissioners?
It is not. We are still in the period where we cannot divulge that information.
All right, so in our July meeting, we'll have the whole shebang. All right, good. Any questions for Christina?
Just a quick question. Oh, so once this person is hired and has completed their work, is there a continuing relationship or does it get handed off? I believe that the city still has an arts coordinator. I'm talking about a staff person. Is there, how does that work in the long term?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We're gonna have a working group, which is part of our art program policy. When the commission and reviewed that art program policy and also the city council approved it. We're gonna have 2 airport commissioners or designees, 2 public arts commissioners or designees. The art curator, myself will be on that working group. Yeah, so as soon as we get the art curator finalized, I'll be working directly with Chairman Corcoran and Vice Chairman Burke. We'll get the airport commissioners chosen. And I'll be working with Jay Barada, who is the liaison for the Public Arts Commission, to get their either public arts commissioners or designees also.
Is it correct to say it's a dotted line between our group and the city art commission and the gentleman you mentioned?
The only difference is that our curator is not a voting member.
Okay, Jeff? Okay, great. Any other questions? Any comments from the public?
Anyone on Zoom from the public wish to make a, looks like Feltman, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just have a question about the composition of this working group. Does the airport commission have a majority of the votes on this working group participants / votes? In the way this is being designed?
No, they do not. We have 2 airport commissioners or designees and 2 public works commissioners and designees.
Well, I think that needs to be rethought. I mean, I'm just gonna call a spade a spade. We were sort of delayed for over a year, probably more like 2 years, by the fact that the Arts Commission basically never prioritized this, and that's how we wound up with a curator. You know, these things are designed, these kinds of groups are designed to overcome obstacles and to make things, to facilitate moving things along. And I would suggest that the airport component of this have a majority of the votes, or you're going to be sitting here in another 2 years still waiting for the Arts Commission to get its act together.
Just to clarify, Christina, I thought it was 2 commissioners, 2 people from the Art Commission, and then yourself, a total of 5. But the decisions all come here. The recommendations that come here for final decision. Isn't that the process we agreed to?
Yeah.
Yes, so basically the arts committee it's basically a standing ad hoc committee. So you've got 2 commissioners who commission who frankly the idea is for that ad hoc meeting to meet routinely and plan whether it's quarterly or monthly, plan out in collaboration with the curator, kind of the next programmatic art program for the airport. So I think the way the policy is written, it's meant to address that gap where we aren't getting the program moving, but there's actually some conversation between the 2 commissions to keep it all going. The airport representative is non-voting, our curator is non-voting. So it's between the 2 commissions that will figure out, you know.
But the critical recommendation is voted here.
Right.
All right. Not perfect, David. It should be an odd number. Maybe we look at that again. But the final decision comes here.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Anyone from the public?
Thank you.
Anyone on Zoom from the public? Please raise your virtual Zoom hand. No public comments.
And we'll hear about this next. Now, when this announcement is made, will this person or group come to present to us and introduce themselves?
Yes, we'll coordinate that.
Okay,
Yes.
good. All right, good. And then we'll hear from our commissioners who are part of this process as well. All right, good. Okay, taxi cab, ground transportation. Pete, you go to you, Victoria, for this?
Yes, good evening, Commission. In your packet, you have a airport commission staff report where we originally were asking to recommend to city council the approval of an increase in the ground transportation piece. However, we are changing that to this is only informational purposes only. So we will not be voting tonight on this. We are just going to be talking about it. The reason for that is because we received some new information in relation to Sunline that we need to digest and really look into before we can actually make a recommendation. to you tonight or even to recommend to city council. So, but we do have a preliminary overview. The intent of why we're trying to increase the rates is because, one, we already increased the TNC fees from $3 to $4. And then the taxi rate fees have been the same fees for quite some time. The intent was to originally increase it by 50 cents. I believe that taxis are about 10%. This is for calendar year 2024, so about 10% of the mode of transportation, with TNC being the number one at 55% mode of transportation, then next car rental companies. So the intent is just to let the commission know that we're making this informational only. We will be bringing this to the commission at a later time for a different rate increase potentially. So once we find out what's going on with the Sunlight ordinance, we'll be able to bring that back to the commission tonight. I also have Lowell Valencia Miller on the line on Zoom. Lowell, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Thank you, Victoria, and my apologies that I'm not there in person. You summarized it well. We do need to follow up with Sunline and the taxi cab companies on information that we recently received within the last few days. And then, as you indicated, we'll come back to commission with a more detailed recommendation.
So there's no need for any questions now. You'll process continue.
Yes.
But I just want to kind of tag on to one comment I made previously on this. I would request that whenever staff does bring this back to us, that there be some discussion as to any differences in the two rates. Is there some logical reason why the TNT rate would be different than the taxi cab rate? It's fine if there's a difference, if there's a reason. But I think if there isn't, at some point it makes sense to make them the same from a fairness point of view.
All right, since no action, let's move on to 8.
We do have to ask if there's any questions
Any
from
questions?
the public. Anyone on Zoom, please raise your virtual Zoom hand. Anyone in the room? No public comment.
All right, lobby space update, Harry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for the last few months, we've been discussing the old wine bar space in the central lobby of the court that we had used for the Coachella pop-up. What to do with that area? Part of one of the critical path issues was understanding if we needed to use that for aeronautical space. We do have aeronautical and an airport for office space. We've since resolved that issue. The airlines that were interested in occupying that space determined they did not need it. And so we are now free and clear to do something else, repurpose that space and activate it in a way that has some customer experience benefits for our passengers. And so we've had a conversation with Views and we've had a conversation internally to understand what that would look like. And we think we have a pathway forward. We have a subsequent meeting with the Views team to talk about what comes out of this meeting. But what we wanted to do in this meeting is get some feedback on what the commission wanted to see. There are ideas that you could work with, take and run with. And I knew we had spoken a little bit about advertising space and really advertising the local events in the valley. Just as a warm welcome, maybe some type of lounge activation in that area as well. But before we got to work rolling up our sleeves on with the Views team on this, we wanted to get some feedback on any additional ideas so they could take to their partners and try and get some agreements done. So I think the ask right now is to get some feedback from this group on, is there anything else out there, any other ideas that you want to see that we can do with the Views team?
Lots of comments, please.
So with the airlines out, so there's no income generating opportunity?
There is. I mean, we can absolutely generate income on that space. It's just the critical path issue for us was, it did need to be used for aeronautical space. We have to see it.
Yes. The assumption is they would use it to advertise.
Gotcha.
Generate space to advertise in that space. Comments? ideas, please.
So it was used successfully as a pop-up store during Coachella, right? Has there been any retail expressed an interest in using this?
We conducted an RFP for that specific space, in combination with RFP that we did for the totality of the concessions program. And at that time, there was the interest, but we didn't feel that interest either that would either align with the interest of the airport, or would generate enough income, to be sustainable in that space. So, one of the options is to revisit that RFP to space out and see if there's additional interest. But I think there's a desire to do this quickly. And so the hope is that we can get somebody in. It would be a short term, and by short, I mean under 5 years use, before we did an RFP again.
The original discussion that was kicked off with Jeffrey Bernstein was how can we use this as a place for people to wait for their passengers to come out, and that's where the idea started. And then it was, all right, if we work with Fuse, can we generate revenue? I think the Golden Voice deal is like $6,500. So could we get like $70,000 of revenue over a 12-month period with advertising? And so we challenged the Fuse people to think about that as well. But the idea is there's a way of orchestra activating that space. So there's a place for people to stand, sit, wait for people coming off the plane. So that's where it started. Are there other thoughts or ideas that we should challenge our friends at Fuse to think about? Any other thoughts you'd want to add to this discussion?
Commissioner Corcoran, you and Mr. do you mind if I add to this?
Go for it.
Okay, fantastic. So, under Fuse's contract, and Fuse is our advertising company. They put in a lot of new capital expenses around the airport to put advertising like in our baggage claim area. We have golf cart or was it golf golf turf on our baggage claim area. They just kind of enhanced some of the advertising space that we have at the airport. But under their contract, they have the capability of turning the space into something like a sponsorship opportunity, similar to what we did with the Agua Caliente Concourse. So we can work with other companies in the valley to bring them into our airport and have them do sponsorship opportunities there, as well as doing advertising. So still the space is generating revenue for the airport, but it's also enhancing the passenger experience. So, and that is a very legal way for us to be able to, do this without going to an RFP, because doing a request for proposal again, which is a possibility as well, because that would allow different companies to bid on this, to propose what they're going to pay us, either through a revenue share, through a flat fee, et cetera. So there is that opportunity. We also discussed with Fuse, because their contract, I think, is 3 years with 2 1-year options to extend, that we would exercise an extension so that if they do any types of capital investment, it would be worth their while to do that, and they were willing to do some additional capital expenses. So we really were just trying to get a feel for what would the commission like to see at the airport if there was some type of sponsorship that was included in there. Not only that, but we did look through our comments. I actually worked with Jake on looking at our customer comments over the last year, I believe. And the feedback that we received was customers are looking for like a lounge. Well, we can't probably do something exclusive immediately, like, a Chase lounge or a specific airline lounge. We can do something where they are able to sit, relax, and even we can work with our partners like Parodies and WH Smith, our food and beverage and our retail, for them to bring out food to the passengers. So there would be another way to enhance their experience here while they're at the airport. So I think, and Lowell, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the space is about 500 square feet of space. So there's opportunity there, but we're really looking for some feedback so we can move forward with Fuse, unless the Commission of Jackson would like to see something like a request for proposal and have interested proposers come in.
I do have one question. Have you looked at the possibility of a shared space for nonprofits in the valley?
No, it's not. You go down there, it's not a very big space. So you're kind of struggling with how do you maximize, for 500+ square feet, the revenue potential. Even if we were to open it up to nonprofits, I know they do some advertising for nonprofits pro bono. It's hard to figure out how we select individuals to use that space on a long-term basis. I know that sponsorship, I used to build on Victoria's comments. Imagine that with all the major events that take place here, if you were promoting Coachella and modernism, that they would pay to have special activations during those periods of time. We talked about that. But we've been kind of challenging views to say, if we could rent the space for $6,500 a month, can we generate revenue that we get at that scale? And most of the ideas around sponsorship and advertising, they can generate that level of revenue. The other thing, I'm glad you mentioned the Fuse contract. So that's up in the spring, correct?
It's
spring next year.
July next year.
Oh, July next year.
Okay. That contract, as I understand it, if renewed, also introduces some capital dollars that they can kick in to support new ideas at the airport like this. If that's the case, could we accelerate that decision in an effort to free up those funds to help us activate this space?
Yes, and just also one more thing that I think I should point out to the commission. In order to get that space ready, we're currently working with getting 3 quotes from different construction companies to see the cost of what it would actually be to bring it to a blank slate to where Fuse can come in and bring it in and make it a true experience for the passenger. So that's going to be some costs there. But to answer your question, yes, Commissioner.
All right, so that's another thing we should consider is do we accelerate? Because I think all of us feel that Fuse has done a hell of a job. And not only the quality and the creativity they've brought to activating our space, but also the financial results have been stellar. So if we were to move this idea, needed more money to fund it, to accelerate that decision can help us do that. So we should consider that, Victoria, in taking next steps. One of the concerns, we discussed with Jeffrey Bernstein the pros and cons of putting this out to bid, and we thought there's 9 months of creating bids on customer. Like, what can we do to just bring this customer experience as quickly as possible with a partner that we trust? And again, we have a lot more confidence after the Agua Caliente activation and talking about the pros and cons and how that got done to work with a partner that's already part of the family, so to speak. So there wasn't a lot of support for let's go out and talk to the world about how they can activate 500 square feet. Let's work with a partner that's already there and may have some capital dollars we can contribute to it immediately. It's something starting.
Kevin, just piggybacking on your thought, I was also thinking about the activations related to the special events, Coachella, Stagecoach, tennis tournament, the film festival, golf tournaments. Even if there was just an area for early pickup of tickets, something like that. I know that that's a huge issue with all those big events. People, if they don't receive their tickets in the mail, they're having to go through an ordeal just to get their tickets at the tennis garden for Coachella and Stagecoach and the tennis tournament, that kind of thing. Even if we just offered it for a nominal fee or maybe gratis, just another part of the idea of being a good partner. It's another opportunity for the airport to shine.
No, it's an absolute benefit.
Another reason for people to fly through Palm Springs to get to those events.
I know that Coachella only sold merchandise for a couple of days. They had it for a month, they only sold a couple of days, and they did really, really well.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great example of if the tennis tournament wants to sponsor this for the 4 weeks or whatever of the tournament, I think it'd be carte blanche or a challenge to Fuse to say, what are the things could you put in there? Like ticket pickup and other things like that to activate the space. I know, switching hats for a second, I mentioned this before, in the Plaza Theater, I I think we're almost ready to have our own display and what's happening at the theater this week. So when people come in, they can see that they would be activated sometime in that space, and that a lot of the theater we pay for, kind of a permanent advertising installation for that, a perfect place to put that, to promote the theater and what's happening in the theater. So I think our friends at Fuse have a lot of ideas like this, and I'd like to see us just proceed and see how fast they can come back and give us some suggestions if you all agree and are comfortable with that. And Victoria, I'd also ask if, as part of that, if it does open up capital dollars to help, let's consider accelerating that decision so that we can extend the contract and use those capital dollars for this, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Just one other topic to bring up as far as special events goes. One thing I think we need to keep on the radar, and I'm imagining that there's been some discussion already, is that the Olympics will be coming. And I think there's probably opportunity utilizing this space for Olympics, followed by Paralympics after that. I would imagine that would be a great revenue driver for us as well.
So yes, you are correct. We have those discussions, and I think what our goal is to balance a permanent use, something that when we have to show up, or when we have leaders and greeters that actually see that something's there, not just a roll up door. Balance that with some ability to activate the space. So we'll certainly take any feedback back to Fuse. I know they've got a ton of ideas on their own that we wanted to make sure we covered everything before we go into it.
I would add, I had an opportunity to sit in on a couple of meetings with Harry and Victoria and the Fuse team, and just kind of speaking to their level of enthusiasm. I mean, they were really strong. And Jeff, just kind of building on what you said, what's interesting about that space is it's outside of security. So to the degree we want to continue to kind of fortify ourselves as that community airport, and I mean, it'd be great if I can come and get a ticket to whatever versus having to wait in a line down Valley. I think it'd be more interesting for even just people who aren't necessarily flying out. So there's that opportunity to drive some additional exposure and revenue, but kind of building on your thought about accelerating their contract. I mean, they're enthusiastic. They've already been putting some ideas in front of us, and they already committed to reinvesting some CapEx to getting that to where we need to be. So that could be interesting if that's something we want to pursue faster than not.
Okay, so I said this half jokingly, but I'll go ahead and say it, and I have a suggested idea. So when we were just briefly talking about this, I said, why don't we do some slot machines there? I mean, some of these airports got them, and they use them, and they're full, and they're on the other side while people are waiting for their family members. And you have a concert or a food and drink booth or concierge thing right next door. The one that we said that the numbers weren't all good, and they can get their drinks and stuff right from there, and just we can have somebody going back and forth with that. You can take it serious or not. It was just a quick on the thought of the brain there, but I just remember going through a few airports and I've seen that. However, my serious comment is, have we ever thought of doing a Palm Springs Airport membership lounge on the other side? Kind of thing where it's the customer experience. I mean, how many have American Express card? Okay, so some of us have sat in there. And if you've been international, they've got that where you go over here and you got that luxury spot. I've been out in the desert here since 1996, so I've been out here quite a long time. And I can tell you that I would think that there would be a lot of people who, instead of sitting in the main area, would pay $1,500 a year if they fly a lot to sit in there, knowing that it opens at 4 a.m. instead of 5:30, so they can get a coffee and something hot to eat, and somebody to say, is there anything we need to do, where they can book a flight, or they can get a cocktail, or when they're coming in, waiting on a flight or whatever it may be. And again, I'm new, so, you guys may have already hashed this topic out, but is it something that we've ever thought about on the other side?
And we started the concessions. That was one of the big things. We built the club. There was no square footage. Was that the issue at the end of the day, that we just didn't have the space for it?
No, that's actually not the issue. So actually with the Fuse team, we started with that idea. For the challenge that we have is right behind that space are police officers that
So we need to find a way to locate our police officers where they're near enough to the checkpoint, they can respond.
Because it was behind the Ebola, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like behind there we had space.
To create that sterile area access, because that's the big issue, right? It's the people who are going through the checkpoint, right? They then take it in, now they want access to it. Right.
So in our long range plans, is there an opportunity to look at this and to move the cops someplace else?
There's, yes.
So I'm so sorry, but I'd like to get some feedback on the lounge pre-security, if you guys don't mind. Only because, you know, I know Fuse had some ideas, potentially looking at this at Greater Home Springs, which is like a surf club. Those were their initial ideas. Any opposition?
No, let's bring forth the ideas.
Fantastic. So we'll bring it in the July meeting. Thank you.
All good? All right.
Any questions from the public? Anyone on Zoom? wish to
Comments
make
from
a-
our friends at Hughes?
Thank you. I'm Rich Gordon and I represent Hughes. First of all, I want to thank you for the positive comments you made tonight. Let you know that we are very excited about working with the team here at the airport to create a first-class lounge that would be something that folks who are waiting for arriving passengers could use, rather than just standing as they do now, but also creating some space in there so that we could do things like having ticket sales or ticket pickup, looking at merchandising for the major festivals and events, as well as advertising. We think there's some great opportunities. We think that recognize that we're going to have to go out and raise more advertising dollars, but we think that space is very amenable to that, and that we can make those sales and bring in the kind of revenue that the airport could benefit from and was looking at relative to possibly renting that as office space. So we look forward to working with the team, and thank you for the positive comments.
Thanks, Rich. Bring them forward. All good? All right, let's move on to marketing, please.
Is there anyone from the public real quick on Zoom wish to make a public comment? Nobody on Zoom and nobody else in the room? No, we're good.
Marketing, please.
All right, good evening, everybody. So looking at our May passenger counts, we have come in our 5th monthly record for 2025, which is great. We had 249,008 total passengers, up 1% over 2024. Looking ahead at scheduled party seats, we're looking very strong. July's up 17.8%, August 9%, September 8.8%, October at 5.6%. Moving up in air service development, got a broken down still with our Canadian carriers. While many of them are showing down, for July, August, October, September is showing up. I broke it up a little bit, so added some additional information with number of flights and seat count change. While July is showing a 27.8% decline in Canadian arriving seats. It's actually only 7 flights or 924 flights over the course of the month. So it's not terrible. Seats. Sorry, I should remember seats. And August is up. So also I attended the ACI Airport Council International's Jumpstart Air Service Development Conference last week. Got to meet with many of the carriers that fly to Palm Springs, and here's some updates from other carriers. Air Canada reported that their U.S. capacity is down 11% year over year. They're expecting a depressed winter demand for the U.S., but they don't expect changing to making more capacity changes over that. Flares down approximately 12% in the U.S., but say that California is still looking okay compared to the rest of the United States, as well as New York. Unfortunately, Blair has opted to not return to Palm Springs next season, but however, they do hold hope they'll return in winter 2026. We'll see this fall, maybe the following fall date. And does return, they love to come back. All Canadian airlines are reporting the market's hardest hit are Florida, Phoenix, and Vegas. All report that California, while still having less demand, is still faring better than the rest of the U.S. So good for us. WestJet again, also U.S. in general is not doing well. California has more demand. Their winter capacity will be trimmed starting in November 5%. To put that perspective, looking at 70 monthly flights in November to 74, so only 1 per week, not terribly bad. Other items noted by the Canadian carriers impacting demand in the U.S. is the weakness of the Canadian dollar to U.S. dollar, so both making it more expensive for folks to come here.
I met with several of our US carriers that do serve Palm Springs, and most of them, all of them said they were pleased overall with Palm Springs performance. A few of them did mention that April did not perform well as expected. We did some research into that. We spoke with Visit Greater Palm Springs. They stated that that hotel occupancy was at a record in April. We also had record month in passengers in April, so I was kind of surprised to hear this information. And then Visit Greater Palm Springs also said the average daily rate was nothing a record highs for April in the valley as well. Some research we're thinking, and what specifically what Flair told us is that April's good for them. Some of the hotel prices, like Blair mentioned, that maybe the passengers that they typically carry can't afford our destination with such demand, high fares. So they are ultra low cost carriers, so more of a people more financially aware to fly that airline. So, and then some of the U.S. carriers have noted that they actually also added a lot of capacity to our market in April compared to April last year. So that has some effects on their revenue, their yields. But overall, everyone's very much happy with us, especially for the alternate market. So major negative to report other than the loss of Flair for one season. Flair last season they did operate for 6 weeks, 2 flights a week. So they're operating to Vancouver. We'll still have multiple daily flights on both WestJet and Air Canada to Vancouver. So we're not losing any markets with their exit. Then I'll wrap it up with Progress PSP, our new webpage, our capital improvement program designed to give the public a one-stop shop to everything going on, all the many projects we have going. We get status updates on them. And I'm gonna let Jake speak about this and talk about the launch of it and the initial reception from the public.
Yes, we launched Progress PSP May 29 with the goal of letting the public inside our operation really seeing the breadth and scope of all the dozens of projects that we have, both passenger facing as well as behind the scenes. And for those listening on Zoom, you can look right now. It's progresspsp.com. So just in the first 2 weeks, the site brought in about 6,000 page views from over 4,100 unique users. We were very impressed with those numbers. And I can update that now with another couple of weeks of data, and there's about 6,500 views since it's been launched. But visitors were not just clicking and leaving the site either. They spent time and explored. On average, each viewer looked at about 3 of the project pages. They're checking things out and seeing, clicking around, just what we want them to be doing. The most visited page there by far was the terminal expansion. Not a surprise since it is one of our biggest projects and it of course directly impacts that passenger experience. Retail and dining did well as courtyard improvements. Those all ranked highly, telling us that our passengers and our community care about comfort and amenities. Not surprising there. Interestingly, the projects with the longest engagement time were the auto exit lane that will replace the revolving doors leaving the sterile area. And then the Agua Caliente Oasis installation. Users spent more on those two than any of the other projects. And so also just wrapping up with the email blast, saw outstanding engagement. We had a 71% open rate, making it one of our top performing email campaigns this year. So we clearly have strong interest from the public in our airport improvements. We have validated our strategy in being transparent about everything that we're working on behind the scenes. And it all goes back to the public deserves to know what we're working on. We're committed to keeping this up to date and putting the latest information on there. We hope everybody listening continues to engage at progresspsp.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions, please. Good news all around. Any questions from the audience?
Anyone from the public on Zoom, please raise your virtual Zoom hand. Anyone in the room? No public comments.
We're good. Well done, guys. Thank you so much. Financial update, Victoria.
Great, good evening, commissioners. I've actually included the financial update in the packet for this evening, but I will just quickly share my screen to go over the different funds. If we're in a surplus or a deficit, which we are in a surplus in all 4 of our funds, but I'll just go through them really quickly. And then I do have another slide or another piece at the end of the financials that's related to the airport budget. So. Waiting a second for it to load on the screen. So in our customer facility charge fund, we have a surplus of about 8.6 million. In Fund 410, which is our passenger facility charges, we have a surplus of 5.6 million. In our airport operation and maintenance fund, we have a surplus of 13.8 million. And this is all through the financial summary ending May 31st, 2025. So we still have one more month of the fiscal year, and then we'll be done with this year. This page here just talks about the detail of some of our revenue. I do want to highlight, since we've been talking about the advertising contract, that our advertising revenue to the airport is up 57% when compared to prior year. And our airport capital projects fund has a surplus of 6 million. So overall, our 4 funds at the airport are all operating in a surplus. At the end of the fiscal year, once we do the complete audit, 50% of our surplus that we have in our airport operation and maintenance will go to the airlines as negotiated in our airport use and lease agreement. So anything that's in excess of that, so the other 50% is going to go towards our fund balance, our airport, to support our airport capital projects. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the airport financials ending May 31st, 2025?
I keep asking the same question. If half of that money goes to the airlines, why aren't we spending more money in that budget and sending less to the airlines, since they have to be involved in these decisions anyways? Like, we have a couple escalators they can help us. Maybe.
So the good thing about all of our capital projects is that the airlines actually pay a fee for that. So every single year we have to calculate the airline rates and charges. So we're actually currently going through that right now. And anything that's considered a capital outlay, so anything that's less than $300,000 gets amortized to the airline rates and charges that they pay to us through their landing fees, their gate fees, their hold room fees, their joint use fees. So all of that gets calculated back in. So essentially, they are paying for all of our capital projects that we have going on at the airport. The one good thing, I mean, on the flip side of that, is that 50% of whatever we make comes back to us for our capital projects. So obviously, the higher that we get in our surplus, the higher that we share with them, and the higher that we put into our suite.
Okay, thanks. Other questions on finances? Anybody from the public want to make a comment?
Anyone on Zoom wish to make a public comment? Please raise your virtual Zoom hand.
I do quickly, just since we're still, sorry, Tanya, since we're still on the topic of financials, I just wanted to briefly go over with the commission that the next page that I'm going to show you is the proposed budget that we've been working very closely with the finance department on. And with our staff at the airport. So as you know, we have airport operations and maintenance, security, landside, customs, police, fire, planning and engineering, marketing, administration. There's quite a few departments that we've had to coordinate with on our airport budget. So we've been doing this over the last 6 months, continuously refining our budget, even refining our budget up until yesterday. So this was the most recent budget that was presented to the city council on the 11th of June. We have since revised that one last time, and it's going to the city council for final adoption on the 25th. So we've been working really close with the finance department to get this prepared. We've done budget study sessions with city council on May 22nd, June 11th, and then we're doing the final adoption of the budget on June 25th. So primarily, this is a roll up of all 4 of our funds. And as you're aware, we do have 2 restricted funds, which are funds 405 and 410, which are customer facility charges and our passenger facility charges. Those are only restricted to use towards specific projects that are for either the consolidated rental car facility or for any projects that are approved by the FAA and the airlines through the use of passenger facility charges. So overall, At one point, we had a surplus of 180,000 in fiscal year 2026. And then it shows that we have a deficit of 15 million in fiscal year 2027. So just, I know that seems a little alarming, but I do want to say that a lot of this is coming from our fund balance. So what that means is that we're pulling out money from our fund balance to support our capital projects. And one of the biggest capital projects that you all are aware of is our baggage handling system. So that's the largest project that we're going to have going forward. Hopefully very soon, within the next couple of months, you'll see that at City Council. So we are receiving about 60 million worth of grants from the federal government over the next couple of months. That will last us over the next 4 years for the life of this project. Or sooner. We are intending to use some of our fund balance to support our other capital projects, such as our escalators and our FIS, temporary FIS construction, and then I think our terminal restrooms. So, Perry, did I leave any out, or Harmon, did I leave any out? Good, good. Okay, good, good. So we do have a revised overall summary that you will see within the next 24 hours at the on the agenda of City Council for the 25th. So it will also show where increases and decreases are. Again, it may look bad, but it's just coming out of our fund balance. So that's where the deficit is pulling from our fund balance account to support our capital projects. So once we get those surpluses in our O&M account, more surplus goes towards our capital projects.
So this will all just balance out.
Essentially, yes, we are not in a financial hardship.
Unlike the city, is that right? Yes. No, are we just, a serious question, are we okay at the airport? Relative to some of the things we read about trying to mitigate the deficit of the city?
Yeah, the airport's in good financial condition, you know, their unassigned fund balance is 100 million. So Victoria says there's funds there to support some of the major capital projects, then we're gonna take away from that 100 million. So from a fund balance perspective, and from a financial stability perspective, the airport's in great shape.
Good, thank you for that.
I just have one comment about this roll up of these four funds. I never like doing this. It's required for the audit, the annual official report. But I think when you've got a group of 15 to 20 commissioners sitting around, we tend to gravitate our eyes toward bottom lines of dollars available, and the big dollars available in CFC and PFC, they really need to be segregated for those. The only two funds that really are easily put together are 415 and 416. And they're all always separated in order to make that clear to commissioners and the public. You're not just sitting on this, tens or even $100 million worth of cash. Well, there's money there. So we can go ahead and push this project or that project. So, I mean, it's good news overall from a health perspective, but yeah, I think it can give a misleading picture of how flexible you are on what you can do.
Yeah, I'll just address that real quick, commissioners. I don't like the way the roll looks here, Jeff. We do want to have a little more clarity into the restricted funds. And so this is our first initial shot. We did a budget book this year as if you look at staff reports supposed to tomorrow night, it's a 300-page document. We're pulling data directly from our software. When you start pulling data directly from the software rather than manipulating it in Excel, you get stuff like this. So we want to, and I encourage the commission to take a look at the budget book. The airport's got a great section, talks about everything that's going on at the airport, capital projects, everything, all the financials. But yeah, we're going to refine this. We're going to make it easier to read. And we're going to show the restricted funds versus unrestricted funds. We're going to continually improve this report so that we can get the commission's feedback on how it looks and
what we can do better to provide that transparency.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Victoria, anything else?
Nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Anybody want to have any other comments or questions on Zoom or in the back of the room?
Anyone from the public? We have one, looks like Commissioner Martin. Martin, I think your mic's muted.
Going once, going twice.
No public comment.
All right, good. Good. Thank you for that. Thanks, Chris, for your participation tonight. Future council actions, Victoria.
Forgot that one. All right, so in your agenda tonight, we have, or in your packet, we have future city council action items. So the next city council meeting is going to be next Wednesday, June 25th. We have the car rental concessions agreements where we're extending the agreements out for all of the existing rental cars for 1 year. We also have Carousel Technology, it's a cooperative agreement for common use. And then we have our fiscal year 2024 settlement and airport revenue sharing credits to the signatory airlines. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. We're giving about 5 million back. So we had a surplus of 10 million. We have 5. We're giving 5 back to the airlines, to the 7 signatory airlines. Then on July 9th, we have the art curator. Hopefully that one's going on July 9th. The purchase of 8 electric vehicle trucks. The American Association of Airport Executives, Amendment number 3 for security background vetting services. We also have a few agreements that we're just formalizing because they had lapsed and they were in a holdover period, and that's Sky Chef, which is a food catering company that caters to some of our airlines. AGI Ground, which is a ground handler that does above and below meeting support, meaning they unload the bags, they load the bags to the aircraft, and they have lease space that they have at the airport. And then Unify, another ground handler. ABM Aviation Parking Management Services. We're reducing their contract to remove the traffic enforcement officers as well as taxi cab starters, because now we have our own traffic enforcement officers through the airport, which has been very good for our customer service. Jake, I have some feedback on that, but we've gotten a lot of really good comments about our customer service on the curb. And then lastly is Marshall Retail Group. We're really just trying to formalize the space down at the Pink Door. Originally, it was a vending machine when we did the RFP. Now it's going to be, or now it is, a coffee shop. And we're just identifying some things that were changed in space around the airport through the concession agreements. So just more formalizing in a legal contract. Any questions?
Questions from the public?
Anyone on Zoom from the public? Anyone in the room wish for the public comment? No public comment.
Mark, go ahead.
Pharmacy quality manager, airports, I'll be going over the projects and the CIP improvement updates. So the first one in your packet is the escalators, as you have heard in great details, and what we are going to do on this one. So our skip for this month, but coming along the next ones, we'll be providing updates on what Joel's team has provided us and how we're moving forward with the options on that. The second project I would like to talk is the TNC and taxi stage structure. It's a measured change funded project. So a couple of months ago, the commission gave us a task to look into feasibility of these shade structure around the taxi area and also the TNC area. And one of the directions that was given is not to do a lot of designing because we don't know how the feasibility will be. So the budget for this measured fund was about $1 million. So we spent about 2.5%, about $23,000 to do a conceptual design. So in your package, you can see that we just received a conceptual estimate to do 3 options. So in totality, they are proposing 2 shelters, at the taxi area, which is on the north side, and 5 shelters at the TNC area, which is on the south side. Each shelter is 15 feet by 20 feet in dimension. And as you can see that to do all the shelters in totality, the very early conceptual estimate is about $2.5 million, which is almost actually more than double the measured difference we have. What Harry was mentioning earlier today. And if you just do the taxi estimates are about 900K, and if we do the TNCs, that comes about $1.7 million. So these estimates has the cost of the share structure. It also has the design contingency, the general condition, the landscaping. So it talks about totality. The structure will have lighting in them, and they will have exposed leads. So they're very rigid structure. Again, very conceptual and initial, design that we have, but the numbers are really what we were not expecting. So the next step is, to discuss about the scope, what next steps are, maybe it's up to discussion, and then we can go from there. Next project that I want to talk about is the baggage handling system. We did receive 2 bids on May 28th. However, the second lowest bid filed a protest with the procurement process. So currently, the staff is working with the city staff to resolve the protest, and hopefully by the next commission meeting, we can bring what the outcome is of this project, and we'll keep the commission posted. The next one is the restaurant renovation design phase. So we actually got a formal proposal from our own called architectural firm to do the design phase of Bono concourse and the courtyard. That is about it is $1.27 million, and we have that in our next year's capital fund. We have put that money there. This design will add about 11 stalls between both. And also at the courtyard restroom area, we will have about 10 stalls which are unisexual, which are can be used. So the next step is that we have already started a task order to the Gensler firm, which is designing it, and we are expecting a kickoff meeting to be happening in July. And we'll keep the one of the good information I want to let the commission know is that originally when the first design scope came, it was about 25 months of design. So we actually worked with negotiate them. Now we're expecting about 20 weeks, 25 weeks to 20 weeks. So we actually reduced about a month of design. And same thing, we see some reduction in the plan check and some bidding document. One of the tasks Harry gave us is that once we have a kickoff meeting, we'll keep encouraging the design firm to reduce the timeline of the design. So we will keep engaging them and see where the staff can work along with the designer to make sure that this timeline of about 20 weeks can be reduced to. So we'll keep the commission updated on that. The mid-century outdoor furniture measure funded. We are expecting it around end of July, mid-August. Last time I spoke with the contractor, they're actually working on some kind of molding to prepare for our customized furniture. They're on schedule, so we will be having it hopefully by end of July or mid-August. The last one is our EV trucks. As Victoria has mentioned, we might be taking it to the commission in July. Yesterday, we received the bids were due yesterday, so we received 2 bids for this project. And right now, we are evaluating the bids with the help of our procurement department to make sure that they are responsive and responsible. So if everything looks good, so the contract will go to the commission, to the council in July 9th. Go ahead, sir.
So on the EV bids, do we have the money in house?
Yes, this project is actually funded with FAA's ZEP grant. We have the money, the grant is already with us, and the bids that we have received is actually under that budget.
And there's no possibility the grant can be withdrawn?
No. Victoria, if you can, I don't think so that ZEP grant is going anywhere. We're actually reporting the grant to the FAA on a quarterly basis.
That's correct, and we already received the grant. There's actually been a grant agreement that has been executed already, so essentially the next steps for this is to start paying for it, and then we can start drawing down the grant. So we already have the grant in hand.
Any other questions?
On the shade structure, says next, discuss project scope. Now, these are the same shade structures that will be torn down, right? when we start,
The master plan.
right?
Correct.
So now we're not gonna, I shouldn't say waste a million. We're thinking about, my glasses on,
Sure.
2.5 million?
Yes, and we don't have fund of 2.5 million. We only have funded about 1 million.
And Commissioner Caldwell, just clarify, so one of the things that we're gonna ask the commission tonight was to provide some feedback on what direction you would like us to proceed, given the new information that we have.
Right.
Based on what we discussed a few months ago, so each year to Herman's point, part of our long-term plan is to reconfigure some of the loop road. There may be some changes to the taxi operations as well. So that's something to consider in this, not necessarily a showstopper, but something to consider.
Well, people's wait time for taxis is a lot shorter than if they're waiting for Uber and Lyft. So it seems like we have a forced decision to spend money on one or the other, assuming you're not wasting it. It's going to knock all this down in 3 years. It seems like that's where you spend the money, after people wait. Otherwise, you walk across the street and jump into a cab. But I don't know if it's a total waste of money.
And I think we had a slide that showed that 50% of the people using Uber and 10% are using taxis. So it's bigger bang for the buck. We decide one over the other.
This is temporary, which it sounds like it really is kind of a temporary situation. That we're definitely gonna be tearing it down. Are we bound by historic preservation rules and regs like we would be on a traditional construction project?
So the first thing is that I don't know that we would definitely be tearing it down, but there's a very high likelihood based on just some of the master plan that we would be tearing it down. On the Orlando side, no, we would not. I shouldn't say no, definitively. Actually, Nikki can answer this question if you want to come on up. But I think there's a low likelihood on the Orlando side, the TNC side, that we'd have its challenges. But on the taxi side, for sure, there's an impact there.
So we just need a forecast on when we think we tear it down. I mean, is this a 5-year decision? Is this a 7-year decision? And I think you have to back into it, your best guess, and then decide if that makes sense. And we could always redeploy the money to something else, but people have been asking for this, another one that's been going on for 3 years, trying to get something done on that side of the airport.
And Jeremy can help me. So one of the projects we are really working towards is the auxiliary rental car facility. To move the rental car from where they are right now to the overflow lot. So we already have started a project definition report for that, which should be done by next couple of months, followed by environmental and design. So once we relocate those taxis, the rental cars from their current position to Neon, that whole wide open area could be used as TNC/taxi drop off along with the rental cars. So one of our goals is to decrease the traffic on the loop in front of the terminal. So most of the taxis and the TNC will be using the LCL all the way down to make that turn, and we will be working on widening the turn and everything. So that we are expecting it another like a 3-year project, between the actually be ready. For 2028, we still on a very initial study on that one, the PDR we are doing, and in the next couple of months we'll have more clearance. But to timeline point, I think 3 years, there could be a possibility that those taxis and TNC will be utilizing that empty big lot, which can accommodate a lot of more cars and vehicles.
Do you have more confidence in that with another month of studying this? So we're not wasting the money. I guess that's our concern.
We can talk to our consultants and come back with some more fine timeline.
Okay. And keep in mind that for those of you who weren't there, the measured day discussion was very specific about we want to use those funds to impact customer experience. So, while we could dump it back into the funds, whatever we decide, we're really focusing on that. And that's why this thing has been pending for 2 years. But I think you have to let us get a better sense of how long those would last based on the bigger picture, what's happening to the car rental facility.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Not on my side, thanks.
Questions? Other questions or comments?
Anyone from the public? Anyone on Zoom from the public, please raise your virtual Zoom hand. No public comments. Oh,
The question, the reason why I asked about the historic preservation piece was because if we're looking for potentially a sort of temporary solution, could we possibly open up the aperture on design of this and even engage our partner, let's just say, Hughes, maybe there's somebody who would help underwrite it in a creative way for some subtle visibility, knowing that it's not most likely a situation, but it might soften the.
Well, I just told Nikki that she'd stay in her seat and not.
Good evening, commissioners, and that's a brilliant question because upon delivering this presentation to the Historic Preservation Commission, we will present it as a totality, and they will be they most likely will ask that similar question that will essentially support what their decision is, because it is a temporary. If we were to say temporary, and we won't probably say as so, because it is going to be a structure that's going to be constructed as if it's permanent, just for building purposes. And we will present it in totality, both TNC and the taxi, and for them to make that decision what is most appropriate in the frontage of the Wexford terminal. And they could make that choice, what is most appropriate and what is viable, and we will be able to present it with that choice, not necessarily as an entirety, so they can pick and choose which one they support the best. And of course, the design is up for grabs when we go before them. We could make some suggestions of the design element that would be more, how do you say, complementary to the building too. So that will mostly come up in that decision making as well, and we're gonna make sure to gear ourselves for that possibility of how do you say, to support which or the other. And they might not support the taxi, they support the TNC, but we just really never know. And maybe they'll support the entire thing, but we are presenting it as if this is a permanent structure right now. And we are going to be transparent with them and tell them that it really might change also too. And that's going to be up for them to also support that. All that's only going to be for 3 years.
Is there a scenario where, and again, I don't know how the different budgets are allocated, where they could financially support this as well? Partner with us on this with some creative financing solutions from their side?
I'm not sure they have budget today.
Because it's within our property, unfortunately, we have within our property is.
All right, so we just need more information. We need a sense of timing, whether this is a good investment or not. All right, other comments or questions?
Anyone from the public wish to make a public comment, please raise your virtual Zoom hand if on Zoom. No public comments.
Carrie, any comments on the executive report?
I'll just highlight some things and look in the night. So we actually started with good news on an award that we received. We'll end the note on good news with an award we're nominating, or being nominated for, which is for one of our concessions, for the Las Palmas Oasis. Airports Council International, that our retail location was submitted for their one of the categories of that award. That will be announced on June 25th in Arlington, Texas. We don't know when, obviously, but there are high hopes given that Las Palmas Oasis is doing really well. It's got a unique vibe, and I think that's showing a strong chance there. We also, it was reaffirmed that on our S&P Global Ratings credit report that we got an A rating, so APSD in financial management. They specifically highlighted our financial management. And so goes to Chris and Victoria for that. And then one other thing is PFAS, which has kind of been an issue everywhere
for the last few years, but certainly in airports. We have transitioned over our firefighting vehicles from the PFAS foam to now foam that no longer contains the chemicals. So that's been completed. We're one of the first airports, major airports in Southern California to do that. So it means all around. That's the number.
Commissioner Hendrick?
On your report, you talked about the rental car facility P3 project. I don't, and it going to city council, I don't see where it goes to the commission. And also.
I'm sorry, in what context?
Well, it looks like staff is going to make a decision which way to go, and then it goes straight to city council.
No, that's not the case. So that issue is currently being worked with Prasa, our financial consultant, as well as Kaplan Kirsch and BBK. Jeremy's on the line. And he's helping us work through that issue. What's really happening right now in terms of process is those firms are going through all of our agreements, all of the tangential issues that are being touched by the potential P3, and they're determining what the feasibility of moving forward is or what roadblocks we'll run into should we move in that direction. After they've assessed that over the next couple of months, they plan to be done with that work in August. We'll do value for money analysis to determine if we're able to do this financially and meet those metrics. At that point, what's going to happen is we're going to have a conversation with this commission about what those policy decisions look like. Because they do impact the airline rate base. They do impact things like our ability to retain certain revenues. So once that value for money analysis is done, we'll have a clearer picture of where we are. And that'll be brought before this group to have those discussions, and then that'll go for recommendation to the city council.
The second thing is, are you also looking at while you're building that wing, are you also looking at adding those gates that would be behind that?
That's not conceived for the rental car facility, and in part because there are a couple of different issues. Two different uses. And so depending on how we package that can have implications not only on the revenue side, but also on some of our legal agreements with whatever equity investor would be. But also, more recently, we just found out that there are some implications about connecting the concourses and buildings themselves to the Westler concourse. So we're trying to solve that problem in the background of how do you plan that.
And then the final thing, again, congratulations on the A. For an airport this size to have that rating, that's darn good.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken. Any other questions? All right. Commissioner request reports. Any comments, questions, other things? Robin?
I just want to thank everybody here. It has been being on the master plan and working with that, plus my 2 terms back to 2015 or whatever. I just want to say I appreciate everybody in this room. Thank you.
And thank you for your service. We appreciate it as well. David Feldman, I know you've left us, but for officials, we want to thank you as well. We'll be welcoming Tim Scheffler next month. And
I want to shout out to Samantha. Last night, the city council had a meeting, and all the commissions from all the city were there, and each commission had about 5 minutes roughly to present. And Samantha did a great job representing us on that, and that actually was the best and most informative presentation. So thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Anything else? Okay, with that, we are meeting here on the 16th. The invitation to for this room was 5:30. Let's make sure it's changed to 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock here on the 16th. And have a great month. And thank you, commissioners, for your presentation, staff for your work. And thank you those in the audience.
And also, just a reminder about the noise committee.
Oh, the noise committee will meet just before that. Those
Sure,
are the noise committee. You'll get a notice to meet at 3:30. Thank you all.